Hi all, this is Karthik from Design School Wpalgoridm. In this video, I'll show you how to design archive pages in WordPress, post grids, post sliders, post carousels, and even an odd post loop items. Loop is an individual unit that repeats itself in an archive or basically in a template. We can totally customize our archive pages, we can add sliders, we can do whole lot all by using dynamic content plugin. This video is brought to you by the folks behind dynamic content plugin. If you don't have the plugin, you can get it from the link in the description. Let's get into it. As you can see, I'm actually running Elementor Hello theme on this website. We've already discussed how to design theme templates. It's simple. You go to templates, design any template and assign it by using the settings over here. So let's first design archives. Archives are basically templates generated by WordPress. So your categories will have archives, your authors will have archives, your date will have archives, so all those stuff. So I'll just click on add new. You just design dynamic templates like any other templates. You can watch dynamic content playlist. I've explained how to do theme templates. I'll click on page. I'll say dynamic category archives. I'll just click on create template. Just like any other Elementor template, it doesn't matter. And we'll use Elementor full width so that it takes up the whole space. So once the page loads, since I'm running the hello theme, I have this little title problem. I'll just click on the settings cog. I'll hide title and page layout. I'll change it to Elementor full width. That way we'll have our header and footer and we have our Elementor content stretched to its full width. Now the only widget that you need from dynamic content plugin is the dynamic posts widget. This is really powerful. Let me show that. I'll just click and drag this widget over here. If you don't have dynamic plugin, again you can get it from the link in the description. As you can see, it already pulls in all my posts and it displays them in the form of a grid. Like I said, you can totally customize each and every individual item in it, number of posts in it. If the number is -1, it will basically pull up all the posts within that particular query. So here we are just pulling all the posts, right? That's great, but I just want to filter all the posts from a category. So I'll just click on the taxonomy query filter, click on all, click on category, and I'll just click this toggle which will just pick the items from the same category. That way, whenever an archive is generated for that category, it will only have the posts from that particular category. I'll publish this. Don't worry, we can totally customize each and everything in this template. I opened up WordPress dashboard in a new page, click on Elementor, and under dynamic content, you can click on categories. Since we actually specified the template for categories, I'll just click on categories, click on archive and click on template, and the template that we designed is called dynamic category archives. It's this one, and it's really important to set it to canvas, because if you don't set it to canvas, it will force these columns which we don't really need, because we are already having the columns in the form of a grid. So you don't need grid within a grid. Simply select canvas from here and pick your template, click on save settings, and that will save the settings. I'll just click on this link right here and it opens up the preview for beginner's guide category, and you can see it's a grid of items, right? I have a couple of posts over here. You can obviously specify the number of posts. I specified 10. If you make it -1, all the posts will be displayed. So I updated the dynamic template here. Let's refresh the category. So it will pull up all the posts within that category, and you can see it has now all the posts from the category. Okay, let's limit the number of posts to maybe 10 for now. You can also specify a post offset. So how you can specify from which post this grid should start pulling the post data. So that's really neat. You can order by date, and there are many other order queries and ascending or descending based on what you pick here. This is for categories, right? And you can obviously do it for custom post types and pages as well. Now we'll click on layout. You can adjust the layout obviously here. Let's choose the grid layout, and it says grid flex. Let's pick something else. Grid masonry. You can pick rows of articles, so it looks something like this. So it's a continuous list of all the articles. You can change the view just by picking the render as option here. You can also change it to a carousel, or you can actually change it to swiper, so you can click. It works as a slider of posts. That's really neat. And you have obviously the settings for each of the thing that you specify. Now my favorite option is to click on dynamic content, and let's actually design a loop template. Now it has two options. One is to enable template and the second one is to enable template. The first one is to enable odd loop template and the second one is to enable even loop template. We'll enable that, but before that we need to design the loops themselves in Elementor. So I'll click on dashboard. Again, I'll go to templates. I'll click on add new, and I'll call it loop 1. So you can call it anything, loop odd or loop even or whatever you want. So within this loop template, this is for all the odd grid items. All the odd items will get the design and even the content that you specify in loop 1. I'll show you that in a bit. So once this template loads, I'll click on settings cog. I'll change the page layout to Elementor canvas. Since this is a loop template, you don't need anything else. And I'll also click on this, and let's click on the widgets button again. Now you can design the individual loop item. So I'll just add a section. I'll have a minimum height of maybe 400 pixels. I'll set it to minimum height. I'll give this section a background in a bit. And you should use dynamic options for loop, because you have to display data dynamically. You can't just put static items into loop because it's of no use. I have title here. I'll just drag it around. It's actually showing the name of this template, but when you apply it in the grid, it will show the name of that item. I'll center it. We'll enable masking. I'll click on masking. I'll maybe pick this. That would be great. Let's also increase the loop typography to maybe that. Just you can design anything you want, and you can use any dynamic widget that you want. So you can pull in user field as well. I'll show you how that looks like, and I just want to show the title and the author's gravatar in the loop template. So it's avatar. I'll just click on this. I'll also center this one. I'll align it onto the center. I'll add a little bit of custom CSS to this. I'll say selector, and I'll say border radius of 50% so that the avatar is rounded. Selector img, so it will target the image. Now the gravatar is rounded, and let's possibly add a background, slide background. I'll make it gray, or maybe do something like that. Okay, I'll publish this. Similarly, let's design loop 2 for event templates. I'll click on dashboard. We'll actually do that. So I'll call it loop 2. I'll click on create template. Again, we'll pick Elementor canvas for loop 2 as well. Click Elementor canvas, and everything else is gone. I'll copy this section and paste it over here. So we have, and I'll call it loop 2 obviously, because this is loop 2. If you refresh this, it will be properly displayed. Don't worry about that. Since this is a dynamic widget, it will pull data dynamically. You don't have to worry about that. Even if you copy the things, since this is dynamic data, it will pull the data dynamically. I just refreshed to loop 2's template, and it now shows the actual title, but this is actually a dynamic title. Similarly, you can use all the dynamic widgets and let your creativity run wild, but let's see how this looks. So for loop 2, I'll maybe change the background color a bit. Maybe I'll just give it a darker background, and of course I'll add the transparency effect. So something like that. We'll see how that looks like. I'll click on this. I'll change the render to grid again. I'll click on grid, and in dynamic content, I'll click on enable template. The template name is loop 1 for event template, and I'll also enable event template, and the template name is loop 2, right? So I'll just pick those. And also, if you want to make those cards clickable, yes, of course we want to make those cards clickable. I'll update. As you can see, it already shows the preview here, but we better view it on the actual page. This is my home page. Since this design is applied to archives, especially the category archives, you can pick any of the categories. I'll just click on beginner's guide. This is a category on my site. So when I click on beginner's guide, it will take me to that particular category, as you can see, and there's our archive grid, and all the odd items get loop 1 template and all the even items get loop 2 template. Now don't worry about the pages because I've just cloned all the posts just to maintain consistency, but if you have your actual data, it will show the actual title and stuff like that, and it shows the things. Now let's change this a bit. We have authors gravatar over here and it's correctly showing up in the grid template. I'll click on the widgets button. Again, user fields, I'll just drag this in. I'll click on author and display name, or maybe you can show first name or last name, or you can show his email or whatever. I'll just show his display name. I'll center it. Maybe the text color can be this. I'll copy this widget and paste it into loop 2. Even loop 2 has that. I'll update both loop 1 and loop 2. And now each of the grid item will show the author name as well. I'll just refresh this category page. You have to publish all the changes in loop 1 and loop 2 and also in the dynamic template. Once you publish that, all the changes are dynamically reflected. As you can see, it now shows the author name, and since we made the whole card clickable, when you click on it, it takes you to that particular post. And it took me to, I don't have any content, it's a dummy post, but if you have content, it will take you to that particular post. And you can also specify how many posts you want. Let's actually do -1. I'll update this archive design again. So once it's updated, you can obviously refresh the category page, and once you update the page itself, it pulls all the posts from that particular category, right? That's really neat. You can obviously do a lot of changes, and even better, these loop templates apply to any render mode that you pick. So I'll just minimize everything else, click on render, and let's actually change it from grid to maybe carousel, and let's see how that looks like. Now in this category, all the posts are actually rendered as carousels, post carousels. So it's that easy designing, or basically designing an archive post carousel. So you just change the view or the render mode to carousel, and it still applies those loop templates for even and odd items. Isn't it really cool? And you can obviously go to the individual items and you can pick how many slides you want to show. Maybe if you want only 3 per slide, you can do that. You can show dots, you can loop, you can autoplay, and you can basically change all the settings that you want within this carousel. So once that's updated, you can take a look at the updated beginners archive, and this applies to all the categories since we have assigned this template to categories of all posts. And here's how the updated post carousel looks like with these settings, right? We chose dot, we chose loop, animation speed, and all that, and this is how it's going to look like. You can obviously click these dots and navigate through all the collection of posts. Isn't it cool? We just made a post slider just by using dynamic widget, just by changing the render mode from grid to carousel. And this applies to all the views available, so you can change it to swiper. You can even do that. That gives you bigger slides. I can update it. You have special settings for swiper, so you can update it and see how the swiper will look like. Again, the swiper will also get the even and odd loop items. You can put any dynamic data within loop 1 and loop 2. If you don't want loop 1 and loop 2, you can just enable one loop, and that will be applied to all the grid items. Let's actually put the date into loop 1 and loop 2 as well. Click and drag it above. Just want it like that. Update loop 1 and loop 2, and I chose swiper from here. From slick, I chose swiper, so it's actually a slideshow of all the posts. I'll refresh my category page to see how that looks like. So there's our post swiper, right? It's a bigger slideshow, and we also added date to even and odd loop templates, and it shows up. It shows the title, the author name, the date and the gravatar. You can put any dynamic, you can even pull in custom fields, you can put images, you can actually make the featured image as the background of this, right? You can totally do that. That's totally doable. We'll actually pick, click and choose featured image. The same thing with loop 2. Click on loop 2, click on dynamic and click on featured image. Update both the loops, and of course once you update them you have to refresh the page to see all the changes made. I'll update this. So there's my categories page with a slider whose background is basically the featured image of the post, and these are all dummy posts that I have. If you have normal proper posts, it will pull up the proper, you can see it's pulling up the featured image of each post and displaying it as the background of the card, or essentially the loop, because we clicked on the section and chose the background image as the featured image, and that's the reason why it's showing all the featured images. It has different featured images. Since I've cloned all the 3 posts, it's showing them repeatedly, but it will show all your images. We just designed an interesting post page just by using one widget. Now you must be wondering, well, I also want grid of items, I also want list of items, I just basically want all kinds of items, and I don't want items to be repeated, right? So all these are posts, but you want to show maybe first 5 posts as a slider and the next few posts as maybe a carousel, and then all the other posts maybe you want to show them as a regular row. You can do that. You just need to duplicate this, and all you need to do is to properly use the settings available in the dynamic post widget. Now you don't have to change the query because query is same. So I'll just duplicate this once and it's there. I'll duplicate it again. So for the second one or for the first one, we just need to specify or limit the number of posts. So maybe within the first slider, we just want 5 posts, right? So I'll just limit the first slider to 5 posts, and the next item I'll just limit it to the next 5 posts, but the offset should be 6 because we already showed first 5 posts here. So the next grid should have the posts starting from number 6. So I'll say 6 here and the number of posts are 5. So totally we covered 11 posts, and you can actually change the view of the second item. It doesn't have to be the same view. So I'll just click on the second item, click on render, and I'll change it from swiper to maybe carousel, right? And the last one, I'll just click on this. We covered 5 posts here, we covered 6 posts here, and this should cover all the posts. So the number of posts is -1 because we want all the posts other than the first 11 posts to be displayed from here, and the post offset should be 12, right, because we covered 12 posts above or the 11 posts above. So I'll just start this grid with 12, and I'll also change the render settings. I'll just make it a regular row, possibly. I'll update this, and that's how you make an interesting archives page. So this will have first 5 posts, next 6 posts, and all the remaining posts in a proper row format. It's that easy. So once it refreshes, I can simply reload the page. So finally, this is how it's gonna look like, right? So the first 5 posts here in a slider mode, and the next 6 posts here. As you can see, if I click on it, it will take me to that particular post. I don't have any content, it's a dummy post. Go back, and you can add these neat little animations to the grid. So these are called wow animations, and you can see when I scroll through, these are performed and they can be enabled within dynamic post widget. And that's how you design interesting archives just by using the dynamic post widget. Of course, this can differ from category to category. Now if you're designing a tags archive, you'd pick tags from here. Similarly, if you're picking an author archive, you can pick an author from here, or you can say current author if you want it dynamically. Similarly, date archives can also be generated just by clicking on this and picking the current date. So that's how you design archive templates, design loops for odd items and even items, pull in all the custom data that you want within each loop item, and that will be displayed in each of the render. So even if it's a slider, carousel, whatever, right, all the post loop data is properly displayed, and this is how it's going to look like. So that's dynamic archive system in a nutshell. Again, it uses the dynamic content plugins, widgets, and also the features, the way in which it works. Hopefully you understood this. It's time to design some interesting archives using dynamic posts widget. What did you think about this? If you don't have dynamic, you can get it from the link in the description. I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.